Let's say you want to make a feature film for the lowest budget possible. How would you shoot it? The first way could be a unique perspective, giving it a shtick that makes it incomparable to higher budget films. This could look like a found footage movie, shot in black and white, or going as crazy as POV. To save on some money, you could film it with a series of wides, two shots, and long takes. But this method doesn't give you much freedom in the edit and can put a lot of pressure on the performances of the film. So while it's effective, it can also lead to some complications and still raise the budget with location moves and bigger cast. Filmmaking is a notoriously long process. Most feature films take between a month to 3 months to shoot, and this is like on the low scale. And this is because of dozens of locations, sets, and large moving parts like crews the size of classrooms and the insanity of lining up actors in creative schedules. And this is why films are so expensive, going up into the millions. So let me introduce you to a genre of films that for a while, distributors and studios got really excited about for indie filmmakers. They're called contained thrillers. It's a genre that hinges on minimal locations, big concepts, and strong performances, minimizing the time it takes to shoot a film, therefore reducing the overall budget by millions of dollars. A film shot in 6 days is significantly more affordable than a film that takes months. Several films have done this well, dating back to films like Rear Window, but I want to highlight 3 specific ones that we used as reference for our latest feature film, Sway, paving the way to a format of filmmaking that allowed us to make this high-concept film on a lower budget. These are movies that rely on one actor, one location, and typically one prop with a series of conflicts that drives the plot forward. Now, you might think, well, how the hell would this even be interesting? Don't movies need production value and lots of locations and big stars?
We're gonna look so fast! Legends on Wall Street!
Well, speaking from experience, there's a certain uncanniness that no budget films get when they try to feel bigger than what they can actually afford, especially when you're illiterate with VFX software and can't really access all the things that you want. So the secret sauce lies in minimal locations, strong characters, and a concept that stays with an audience for weeks on end. And what my buddy Charlie calls a rock in your shoe, something you can't stop thinking about after the credits have rolled. So in this video, we are going to be diving deep into the process of making indie films, and specifically tangible ones that are possible on a low budget. The real secret to making a cheaper film is less shoot days. This is why short films are more affordable than features, just based off of time. We wanted to test if we could use the same principles in our new feature film, Sway. Single location, long takes, minimal characters, and shoot it in 1 week. And when looking at movies for inspiration, there was one that came up again and again. And this was Tom Hardy's white-knuckle thriller, Locke. Shot over 6 days in a moving vehicle, Locke was a single location feature spanning over the course of a long drive, resting heavy on the shoulders of the dialogue and performance of Tom Hardy. It's one character, one location, and a series of complicated phone calls that push the film forward. Similar to Ryan Reynolds' 2010 thriller Buried and 2018's The Guilty, Locke somehow keeps you engaged through phone calls and minimal set pieces. There's no ensemble cast or even a high-budget spectacle scene. And even though all of it is based in a car, there is no sense of action. This was a grounded, contained thriller that kept the audience engaged, the same way a stage play would with an audience, using performance and circumstance as linchpin to entertaining us. And for some reason, it's crazy, but it works. And not only with this film, but the other movies I talked about as an example. The Guilty follows a person in a call center, single location, going through a series of phone calls. The same with Ryan Reynolds' movie, Buried. And this would be what we use as our inspiration to make our thriller, Sway. Treating it like a stage play with a revolving door of characters, but keeping the set to 3 rooms and using lighting as our environment shifter. So I want to dive deeper into making a high-level feature film on a minimal stripped-down budget and a very short shooting time to teach you how feature films can actually be done in the duration of what some short films take to make. We did something called block shooting, where essentially we shot one actor going through all of their dialogue in about 3 to 4 scenes, and then switching to the other actor doing the exact same. So when we did our cross coverage, it wasn't 2 cameras shooting each actor, it was 3 cameras shooting one actor, going through an entire scene and then doing another one. Now, while this seems counterintuitive based off of performance, it was actually helpful for our main actor, Emmanuel, who had to memorize around 60 pages of straight up dialogue. We got Michelle Morgan, who was our incredible co-star in the film, to go through all of her dialogue, and then that got Emmanuel all warmed up for his stuff. Now, the other reason why block shooting is helpful for a situation like this is cinematography. Instead of trying to light 2 characters on a wider sort of frame, you can actually light just one actor and really dial in those settings, and also put more cameras on that one person. Because we didn't have 6 cameras, 3 cameras in one performance helped it out so much more, because then we could go our wide, medium, and close up. Now, I have a full video about scene coverage in the description below, which you guys can take a look at to get a better example of what I'm talking about here. Now, like I said before, one of the secret sauce items to how this movie came together was actually the idea Charlie had, which was making a film focus on phone calls. Now, similar to our big inspiration, like The Guilty, Lock, and Buried, this is a series of phone calls, and why it made it so much easier is because we only had 1 actor to film instead of 2. And when you minimize the coverage that you have to capture in a scene, it allows you to get more shots of one person and get through a scene way faster. It also helped out because Charlie, the other director of the film, would be on the phone on the other end, basically directing while they were going through the scene. So if Emmanuel needed to bring up the pace of the scene or give a little more energy, Charlie would reflect that in his acting on the other end of the phone. It also helped that Charlie wrote the film as well. I also just think that making a feature film is so complicated to begin with, so stripping it down and simplifying it with just one actor can make it so much easier. And obviously that's really hard because you need to keep it interesting. So having a series of phone calls raised the stakes without seeing the other characters, and you really just got performance. One of the greatest mysteries of making a film is, how do you get it financed? It's probably the biggest question I get asked on this YouTube channel, and one of the biggest ones that I wonder in life in general. And no matter what tier of filmmaking you're at, you're probably asking, how am I going to get this financed? But the craziest phenomenon that happened with making Sway was that out of the dozens of scripts that Charlie, co-director of the project and writer of the film, has written, Sway, this contained thriller, was the one that got made. And the craziest part out of all of this is, at the same time, my other writing partner in crime, Neil Schneider, got his film greenlit, and it was the same type of movie. A film following one character through a series of phone calls, going through a stressful situation in one space. So this isn't to say that these types of movies are the ones to get greenlit now. There's a lot of them out there, and I think people are looking for different films. But I think what the secret sauce behind this film to get the steam behind it is the fact that it was doable. Anybody who is looking at it from a financial return perspective, and anyone who wants to get behind a movie, they want to see, is it an actual realistic idea? What is the doability of it? Any movie that strives to be too ambitious, especially in the lower budget, is probably going to be harder to do based off of the fact that it seems like the creatives didn't do their homework. And even though we want to go out there and make the movies we've always wanted to make, perhaps the trajectory of a more successful feature film lays in using the resources that are available and being a realistic filmmaker.
So 13 is the longer scene.
I think we should see his blocking shift in 13.
And a big thing that can burn a lot of time is different locations. Doing location moves burns so much time because you need to set up, strip down, and obviously travel in between. But on top of that, you need to find where the nearest restaurant is, make sure there's bathrooms, and all of these different logistical things. We stayed in one condo and just shot every single angle of it. And this allowed us to go very creative with certain lighting setups in the same rooms over and over again, and also gave us the flexibility, because we were shooting one character, to be able to shoot them in a number of different angles in the same space. And to talk about The Guilty for a second, they decided to do a remake with Jake Gyllenhaal that came out on Netflix. The movie I've been referencing the whole time is actually the original that came out in 2018. But during COVID, they shot a remake of this, and I don't think it did that well. I never watched it, but It's interesting that they had a similar approach. They wanted to shoot it in 6 days. The director was like, absolutely not. We need at least 8 days to shoot this. So Jake Gyllenhaal was like, fine, great. And I think they ended up shooting it for about 12 days in total. The biggest challenge actually for this film is when we were doing big dolly shots or lock off static tripod moves. Basically anything when gear was touching the ground took the most amount of time, which I realized on day 1. And so by day 2, 3, 4, and 5, we went more and more handheld as much as we could. Basically so that we could move the camera around and find new frames in the middle of a take, or if we were doing a second take and third take, we could change the angles. I shot just sort of C camera with my gimbal and FX3, and then by the last day, that became A camera because there were so many more shots we could get that were steady and smooth, but also kept moving. As soon as any gear touches the ground, whether it's a light, camera, or piece of grip gear, is going to take time because you need at least 2 people to lift that up and move it around. And so for me, I started realizing that if I could just swoop in and get coverage on my gimbal, either after we had shot the take, during the take, or making it the take, it made things way faster.
Hey, Sway, can I grab you for a minute?
We're just starting.
I wouldn't ask if, you know.
Who's dead?
What? No one's dead.
Then what could have waited an hour?
There was a scene in the movie that we needed to shoot in the shortest period of time. And originally it was going to be multiple angles of these 3 characters on the patio. So I decided to pitch the fact that we shot it on a gimbal, rotating around the characters as a oneer. And we shot this 4 different times, 2 takes going one way, 2 takes going the other, and we cut those together and it made a very dynamic scene. And while some people, like my dad, feel like they're gonna throw up during it, it was the most talked about scene when we premiered the movie. Sometimes these creative limitations are one of the best strikes of genius when you're on set.
Richie, this is on you to make right.
I know.
Okay, he's got a speech at noon. That's in a couple hours.
I know.
Stop saying you know. You never know. You always have to be told.
Okay, the final thing I want to talk about, if you watch this, you're like, I want to go make a feature film. I'm going to tell you, don't go do it. Like, the best advice I could give you is don't go make a feature film. It's going to be the first urge you have if you've made one short film or you've never made a movie, because that's all you've seen, right? You get excited, you've gone on Netflix, and you're like, oh my God, I can make a movie of this level. You probably could, but there's no use to making a movie just for the sake of having an 1.5 hour long film on your belt. I have 3 of them now under my belt, and 2 of them really didn't do much for my career other than the collaboration and sharpen my tools. So what I would highly recommend, which is a way more time-saving, budget-saving exercise, is to make short films. There's a better avenue for them on platforms like YouTube or Vimeo, and they build the same sort of muscles that a feature film would. You get to work with collaborators, you get to make your dream come true, and you don't have to spend an entire year on it. A short film could take up to 3 months to make. A feature film could take up to 3 years to make. So I think as far as commitment goes, don't go make the feature and waste all your money unless you've done at least 3 short films. But also, what am I saying?
That's why I want to do angle from here. Like say
Great.
angle from
Cool.
here. And like have it tight.
Friends, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully learning something in this video. I did want to do a quick little shout out to our movie Sway. It has done the festival circuit and it is crushing it in the film festival world. I've always wanted to get a film that had the poster with laurels all over it, and we've definitely achieved that. We're stepping into the distribution territory of getting it sold and finding platforms for it. So I'll keep you guys up to date with that process. And for those of you who are curious and want to see a little bit of what this movie looks like, I've included the trailer at the end of this video. You let me know what you think.
James Drayton, also known as Sway. Welcome to EQ's 40 Under 40.
Anybody find my brother yet?
No one's got a single lead on him.
So what is this about?
It's about the bookie. This is Sway.
I'm looking for Cyril,
To what purpose?
so he can clear up his bet.
2023 NFL.
So it is about money.
You bet with what you have, and he didn't.
There's men outside our house, and they keep walking up to the windows and looking inside.
What are you talking
There's
about?
like 8 of them. They have these 2 wide panel vans, and they just keep going back and forth.
You know what I've learned about doing this job? You can beat a man into a coma, into a wheelchair, early retirement. But a couple of months later, they'll be back and knocking at your door with a gun trying to get you back for the arse whipping you gave them. Only way to avoid that is to destroy the man's soul.
You can't imagine the nightmare I have planned for you if you don't roll over on your back and pay up.
You want to know who to blame for this? Go walk into your bathroom and look in the mirror.
So when people come to bet with us, they know what the fourth quarter looks like.